Hey everybody, Bernie Gallerani bringing you another episode of Success is Not Convenient. Thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. Please don't go down and hit that like button and that subscribe button. We'd like to continue to keep bringing all these material. It's interesting through the interviews that I do, through all the research that I do, and the things and the experiences that I've had. One of the things that I've always talked about for growth, and it's been the absolute, no doubt, number one thing that has allowed me to do some of the things that I do in the businesses that we own and the struggles that we go through in order to have success in any business that we have, is I've read a lot of books. I've talked about that. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably 1,000 books I've read, and probably another couple hundred that I've listened to on audio. And so I was thinking a lot about, people ask me all the time, what books do you recommend? What have you read? What has made the biggest impact? And I'm going to say all of them have made the biggest impact. And the reason why all of them have made the biggest impact is because all of them have touched me in some way where I've been able to apply things that I've learned from those books. I love this saying, and it says, readers are leaders. For me personally, I didn't have a college education, so the only way I could be educated through the things that I was interested in was to read about the things that I was interested in. And so for those, they were business books, they were mindset. As I grew to develop a work ethic and a skill, one of the things that I had to start learning was how to be a business owner. And so I'd learn things and hear stories about people that own businesses, and then I would apply things over the years. And then in time, as I built to where I'm at today, I started reading books on how to be a better manager, which I'm still working on, how to work with people, how to scale, how to motivate people, so on and so forth. And so someone turned me on to this book, which I'm going to talk about today. And I read it about, I'm going to call it maybe 90 days ago, I would guess. And I was thinking about it the other day. I was driving and I was listening to a different book. And this book came in and just grabbed my attention again, and thinking, man, how all the things that I learned about this book. So write this book down, and we're going to put a little caption of it here and kind of show you what the book looks like and the author. But it's called The Science of Scaling, and it's by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Blake Erickson. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I learned that I've started to apply from this book that I think have made really significant differences in how I think. And so if you're really talking about, like, well, what do you mean by how you think? It all starts with what goes on inside of our head. So the businesses that we have, the businesses that you have, the people that you have, the process that you have, the frustrations you have, the things that are successful that you have, all of that starts with what goes on inside of here. If we know that we're fully responsible for the businesses that we have, whether they're good, whether they're bad, if we know we're responsible for that, it really changes the trajectory of how we look at it. And so what I want to do is kind of go through some of these notes that I highlighted, and I've done some research on this recently to try to make sure that I was bringing information. And there was a lot of information, and so I may have to do a second part to this one because there's so many great things. And so this book, The Science of Scaling, is really about how do we develop a business that's scalable. Some of you guys may not know what that really means, and that is a business that is it's running on its own. The systems are running. It doesn't require me as the solopreneur or the owner or the CEO to be involved with the day-to-day operation, that we have to bring in really good people to help scale it. So whether you're in the business or not, it is growing leaps and bounds without your physical effort, and that you are putting very smart people in the process, okay? So the first thing we have to do is we have to identify the process and the procedures of scaling. So what does that mean? It says it starts with a process. It begins with who you are. It begins with who you are and who you want to be. Your current identity is calibrated to your current results. And to scale, you must upgrade your identity. And what it's saying, and there's a great book out there too, and I'm not going to try to confuse you with all these books, but years and years ago, I read a really great book, and I'll recommend it to you also. And it's called Being the Solution by Daryl Rutherford. And the reason I'm bringing this book up in this conversation is because it talks about who you're being. And in this book, Scaling, he talks about that exact same thing. Is who are you in order to scale? What is your identity as a person? And we'll stop there for a second, because when we're an entrepreneur or we're a solopreneur, however you want to look at it, we have things going on inside of our head that have allowed us to become an entrepreneur and allowed us to be a solopreneur, meaning that we have a business, we're running it ourselves, we might have a couple of people. And so that started with a thought, and it started with how we identify ourselves. And then from there, we decide to grow or we decide not to grow. And that's completely up to the individual who puts in their head that they want to grow, they want to scale. So everything's a mental game, right? You don't scale a business with first scaling the person leading it. And so when we say, well, how do I develop a business that allows myself or my business to absolutely scale? You have to change you. Before you can ever change your business, you have to actually change you. Well, wait a minute, Bernie, that's a little bit confusing. It really isn't. And I'm going to go into what I mean here with some recent things that I've done since I've read this book and some ahas that I realized and some of the frustrations that I had in the businesses that I run, and that I looked at all of this and went, oh, I'm starting to get it. I was a bit of a solopreneur, even though I had a pretty large company. I mean, we have a $300 million company that we run daily here that spins off into other businesses that we own. And so the thing is, when you look at that and going, well, wait a minute, you're running a $300 million business and you haven't even scaled yet. No, not really, because we got to look at it and go, well, how do we get it to $1 billion annual business? And so when you look at making a $300 million business, a $50 million business, or let's just say a $10 million business or a $1 million business, how do you make a $1 million business a 10 million? And how do you make a 10 a 50? And how do you make a 50 a billion, right? How do you do all of that? Yes, it's getting really great people, but it's changing who we are in here first. And so we need to ask ourselves this question, and that is, who do I need to become to go to the next level? Who do I need to become in order to achieve the goal that I really want to achieve? Then you have to adapt a new habit. You have to have a new language, a new mindset. For example, if you want to scale your business, adapt the habits of a CEO rather than a solopreneur or a solo operator. You're like, okay, I kind of sort of get it, but I kind of sort of don't. I get it that you don't kind of sort of get it and you kind of sort of don't. And the reason why I'm saying that to you is we have to change what goes on in our head. And how do we do that? By being around more people that influence us, by reading a lot more books, by challenging our ego, by overcoming our fear. And you know what I love about this book? And he talks about this and talk about like a little head scratcher is he goes in to saying things like, why do you look at your business and say, okay, I want to grow by 10 or 20% next year? Why don't you say, I want to grow at 10 times where it is? Why can't I 10 times my business? Why can't, watch, this is going to scare a lot of you. Why don't I 100 times my business? Wait a second. Okay. Now you're really kind of setting the stage here. You're doing $1 million a year in annual revenue, and you're telling me I can do 10 million in 1 year? Yes. Wait a minute. I'm doing $1 million a year, and you're telling me I could do $100 million a year? Yes. The incremental growth, the author goes on to say this, urges you to define a goal, a bold, audacious goal that says, how do I 10 times it? And when you think that way, when you force yourself to think 10 times it, or let's go off the cuff, 100 times, what that does is that forces you to rethink everything. Your mindsets, your systems, your team, the business model that you're operating. I mean, it literally could put you over in the left seat and go, uh-oh, like you're telling me I got to change everything? Possibly. Rather than just incremental growth, aim for a widely ambitious goal to force you a whole new level of thinking. Gosh, man, I can remember, and this is a funny story and a little bit embarrassing, but yet it is what it is. Probably 3 or 4 years into my business career, I set a crazy, audacious goal. And I actually called the goal the I Can't Fail plan. And the reason why I wrote the I Can't Fail plan is because I thought, well, if everything worked in my favor and nothing could ever derail me, if everything just worked out like I wanted it to, what could I become? So I wrote that plan, and I'm going to say it was probably 17 years ago, maybe 15, 16, 17 years ago, something like that. And so I wrote down this goal. I can't fail, so I'm going to have as many people as I want. I can't fail, so I'm going to spend as much money as I need to. I'm not going to have any hiccups. What's my life going to look like? What does this all look like for me? And when I got done with that plan, now remember, I was very, very small. I had a very, very small business in comparison to what it was. Like, it was probably 15 million, 20 million in annual sales. Now we're at 300 million. So we were much smaller than we are today. But I wrote that plan and I looked at that and I thought, wow, how amazing would it be if I could create that plan? But you know what's fun about that? As I'm still not there. But the business has grown so much because I wrote that plan. And so here's the question. Can you 10 times your revenue in the next 3 years? then use that goal as a filter. Like, get really excited about it. And any initiatives that doesn't help towards that goal, deprioritize it. Sometimes we get like so caught up in the minutia of business that we're doing so many things that are not allowing us to grow at the level we need to. Use time as a tool, like compress timelines and create massive urgency in your life. The problem, I think, with a lot of people is we come to work and we're like, well, we're here all, 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day or however long you guys work. And we work 5 days a week. What if you accomplish your entire work time in 2 days or 3 days? What if you did all the work you normally do in 5 days and you did it in 3 days? What if you took and you looked at all the things that are going on in your life right now and you're like, what is actually moving me forward? And what is actually causing me to get things done? What do I have to do to get things done? Time isn't just something you manage, it becomes a lever for you. It's not something that you're like, oh, I got all this time. You really shouldn't act like you got all this time. By shortening the timelines, makes the deadlines that you feel impossible. You need to force clarity and focus rapid learning and eliminate unnecessary steps. And I think that if most of us really look at this, and I want us to do this for a minute, just look at it and think this: how much of my day is actually wasted? How much of my day do I think I'm really getting the most done? And compressing the time forces urgency. And here's the fun part: it adds so much clarity. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm in this right now. This has been 90 days or so since I was able to get exposed to this book. But man, I got to tell you something. I've looked at my life totally different in the last 90 days and realized how much time I've wasted. And I have been busier than I have in a long time, but I've gotten so much more done just by looking at my schedule, looking at what I waste my time in. And let me give you an example, and I think a lot of you guys will appreciate this. How many of you are bogged down by your email all day long? Looking at your email, looking at your email, looking at your email, getting into your email. How many times you guys check your text messages on your cell phones? Text check. How many times do you look at your phone every single day? And I had a person recently in a group that I was in share, they were an expert in this particular area of being distracted by things like cell phones and emails and employees coming and talk to you and things. And so she gave us some really cool and great tools to use to help us stay more focused within the day. But I thought I would mention that because statistics are staggering of how many people waste their time checking their emails throughout the day. You don't need to do that. Find 2 or 3 times in the day to check your email. Just do that. Just kind of compress more work time and allow yourself less time to be distracted. Hardy goes on to say stuff in the book, and it says, instead of we'll get this done in 5 years, set a 12 to 18 month deadline. Use time blocks, like tighten the sprints and ask, if we had to do this by next quarter, what would we change today? What would have to happen if we said, hey, we want to do this in the next, year or the next 12 months or the next 18 months? What would it take for us to do this in the next 90 days? And you guys are going, Bernie, you're getting a little bit crazy. Like the next 90 days to do a whole year, the next 90 days? Yes. If you're going to 10 times your business annually and you're doing $1 million, that's only 4 million. I'm saying you could do 10 million. So if I say, God, can you get the whole year done in a quarter? And so the author goes on to say, we need to raise our floor, and that's like our minimum standard. And the floor is what you'll no longer tolerate. And those are things inside your company that you're like, hey, listen, I'm allowing all this distraction. I'm allowing this, I'm allowing that. And so I'm going to put a floor into what I'm going to say no to. This is the bottom. I'm not going to move forward with anything outside of my limits, right? Meaning I'm going to limit myself there, right? Now, sometimes it's mediocre people, clients, products, processing. Raising your floor means eliminating those in which align with your impossible goal so you can scale. If you're eliminating those and which don't align with your impossible goal, then you have to push them out. You can't keep them in the mix because they're holding you down from succeeding. Eliminate what you will no longer accept. Inferior people, clients, and processes. You have to be able to say, I no longer want these people in my life. I have to eliminate all of the distractions. This is so critical in order to expand and scale your business at the highest level. It is such a calculated effort. You own a business or you start a business, you're trying to get it off the ground, you're the solopreneur, you grow, you have some employees, you get a little bit more distractions, you have all sorts of things. People, take it from me, I can tell you right now, there is no way you run a big company and don't create a lot of distractions. So just consider that even though you're successful in your business, can the business be more successful by eliminating all the distractions. The author goes on to say, Hardy goes on to say this. It says, audit your business. Which clients or projects are dragging you down? Which team behaviors are subpar? Set a new standard and say, below this, we just won't do it anymore. We're just cutting this out of our life altogether. And it's going to be painful because it's something you're used to doing. It's going to be painful because you might have to cut things out that people don't particularly understand. And that's okay. Remember, you're doing this for the company and the scalability of it. You're not doing it. You can't please everybody all the time. You must eliminate the 80% of the things that don't move the needle and simplify your business model, systems and teams, and offerings so what remains can scale. See, what happens is we get so distracted by everything else, we can't even see the things that really work. You know, in the world I live in, where we talk to a lot of people, I always try to tell my salespeople, you know, you have to get rid of the noise. And that means that the people that are talking to you that aren't moving forward, and you have to continue to be following up with people and listening to what they say, because, oh, there's a lot of noise out there and they will distract you. And then there's a lot of good people out there that want to do something, but you're so covered up by the noise, you can't find the value in the other things to help other people. See, scaling is more about subtraction than it is addition. Simplify your model, your system, and what you're offering. Don't get overcomplicated on things, because when you get overcomplicated on them, it makes it hard for you to identify the ones that are serious or the ones that are actually wasting your time, or the activities that you're doing that are actually productive, or the activities you're doing that are unproductive. Choose one product and one service to focus on and eliminate the preferential ones. Simplify your operation so they can be replicated. Ask yourself this question: what can we stop doing altogether? What could you cut out? What do you absolutely not need? Have you ever done that in your business? Have you ever gone into your business and just really wrote everything down and say, you know, hey, listen, team, what do we have in here that we spend a lot of time on, but we don't got a lot of movement on? What is it in our systems that really aren't working all that well? So in this book, in Scaling, it goes on, he talks about a couple of different things, but he talks about your frame, and that's your floor. It says, focus on your framework. The book presents a 3-pillar frame that sets the bold goal. That's the what. That's the reason why you're doing it. The floor, raise the minimum acceptable standard. So what no longer will you be willing to accept? What are you not willing to accept? Focus. Concentrate on the few high leverage things that align with your frame and your floor. A 3-pillar structure: frame, your big goal; your floor, your standard; and your focus, what you concentrate on. Use the structure. First set your frame, your big goal, then decide what your floor will be, like what you won't or not willing to accept. Then define the focus that you have, and then use each as a decision as filters. So make a decision on what they are, why, what, and how far you're willing to go with it. And you will, in the end, find that you're eliminating, I'll bet you most people can eliminate 70% of the things they do in the day, because it's really not moving them forward. It's just noise. It's just noise in your life. Sometimes we have to be very careful that we aren't focused on being busy, but we're being productive. I'm going to say this again. Are we busy, but we lack production and growth? Are we busy so we pat ourselves on the back and go, well, I was busy all day, but are you moving the needle forward? You need to build a system and a team that can scale beyond you. You can't be the bottleneck of your own business. I can tell you that was me. Geez, that was a big aha moment. I'm still in that aha moment, that I'm actually the bottleneck and I'm the problem. And so I had to look at the business and go, what do I have to do? How do I have to scale? And so what I knew is scaling requires designing a business structure or a process so my team can thrive, because we all want to have a thriving business or a thriving team. We want to make sure that everyone's aligned, everyone has the same kind of future vision, and not just a present operation. Like, can we buy everybody in to the same program? You can't really be the bottleneck. You need people in your process that don't completely rely on you as the owner. And those are things that are really hard. When you build a business today, you're building a business going, hey, I built the business. You know, that's fair. And if you want to pat ourselves on the back with that, that's okay. I think that if you've taken the risk, it's okay. But then you have to ask yourself this question: where should my business be, or where do I envision it being? And at some point, you might be the person that prevents it from growing. I had to come to reality with that over the last couple of years and just ask myself, I built a pretty good business, probably exceeded anything I ever thought it could be. And yet, if I want it to continue to keep growing, am I in the way of that? So the author goes on and says, map out which part of your business are dependent on you. So what part of your business today that you have to do in order to keep things moving? And then start creating a standard and a system to delegate those decisions out, right? Hire people aligned with the future vision, not just in the current execution. Boy, that's a hard one, because when I had to look at my business, or I still look at my business today and say, man, if somebody else who had a better vision than me, somebody that looked at this business as a strategical standpoint and said, we can make a really great business, but gosh darn it, Bernie, get out of the way. So I've had to make those decisions, which I have, to, in some areas of my business, to step away from that part of it and focus in on the things that I think I'm the best at. We need to focus on our transformation, not just growing the company, but doing more of the expansion side, becoming an organization that becomes more. And that means upgrading, identifying, creating different cultures and systems, and even really removing what no longer serves you and the company in order for it to grow. Growth isn't about piling on more tasks. It's about becoming more and creating your organization to grow. And so sometimes we can sit back and look and say our business is really great, and it probably is. I kudos to you for creating a great business. But we need to add more systems, more things in place to allow it to thrive. So the question I might ask is your business really good? Is it great? Is it exceptional? Is it something that you sit back and you just can't believe that you were able to create what you have? Has it reached its pinnacle? And maybe it's reached its pinnacle for you, but maybe somebody else has a different idea that could do something with it. I had a friend of mine one time. I was in a dinner and we were talking about business, and there was a group of powerhouse folks there, and friend said, hey, I have X% of market share, and I think I've pretty much capped that out. And somebody who was really smarter than us said, well, why are you saying that? Like, why do you feel like you've capped it out? And then the person said, well, I have this percentage of my market share, and it's more than anybody that I know. And then this really smart other person said, well, I know somebody that has twice that in their market. My friend was like, wow, really? And he goes, yeah. Why are you telling yourself you can't grow? Because in his mind, in my friend's mind, he had put in that he's exceeded what is normal in the industry based on who he knew. It really doesn't, like, you look at it, you kind of start limiting your belief system because you're the only one that believes it. And you might have somebody that's ever told you, man, you're doing really good. Gosh, you got 15 or 20% market share. Holy smokes, that's fantastic. So get 50. Well, nobody I know ever known has had 50. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Your team, you starts with you, the owner. You have to undergo a complete cultural change. You have to have a new scaling program. You have to have a new business direction. You have to think so dynamically beyond where you currently think. The question is, how do you do it? It's great books like this, Scaling Your Business, that causes radical clarity and change. So what's holding you back? Like, what are your blind spots right now that you're holding on to and all the excuses you have? Because my friend thought he had already achieved what he thought he could achieve. And now I got to tell you something really great. This was several months ago. But since then, my friend has dove into the deep end, building a new building, creating new visions, and is having so much fun because this conversation ripped off his way of thinking and allowed him to think completely different in a whole different manner. Well, guess what? We've always done it this way. This is the way we've done it, right? This is just your mindset. These are barriers that prevent you from scaling. Being brutally honest about what's not working in your business, being brutally honest about your mindset in that situation, shutting down justification of a way you do it the way you do is actually the key. Shutting down, write this down, shutting down justification on why you do what you do or where you're at, why you're at where you're at. Shutting it down, destroying it, divorcing it, killing it, stepping on it, ripping it off and throwing it away, because your decision to grow is nothing more than what goes on in your head. So what I think we need to do is we need to conduct a brutal audit. What assumptions have we made that are not working? What have we been tolerating out of the convenience of our life then set up a mechanism to surface these regularly. Look at these and go, these are really not who I am. It's just who I've been. It's who I'm being. Just simplify your model so it actually scales. If you can develop it so it scales, then things will start to grow. To truly scale your model, you must simplify your business and align it with your bold vision. Make it simple. We have a thing, my ops manager here and I always talk about the same thing. We always say, listen, we got to keep this simple, stupid, because we've complicated our system. It is so darn complicated, we're confused. We don't even know things that we're doing sometimes based on the decisions we made. So if the model is complex or overloaded, you're going to hit a ceiling, which is where we were. So when I read this book, I started understanding that I have screwed up. Understand this, it's been a great business, but I've screwed it up at some level by overthinking it. So go back and evaluate your business model. Are there just too many moving parts? Too many niche services? I love all those people go, I got this, and I got this, and I got this, and I got that, and I do this. It's like, holy smokes, that's a lot. And can you design a core offering with a scalable delivery mechanism to trim the complexity of the process? I'm going to tell you guys, this book really got me thinking about my life, my business, and how I looked at my business. It made me realize how small I actually was thinking. It made me realize that no matter where I thought I arrived, that I had actually not really done all that much. There's a lot of really smart people out there, and a lot of them are writing great books like The Science of Scaling. And so I got to tell you, I want to thank Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Blake Erickson for writing this book. And by the way, I got this book from another person who has a very large company who said, you got to read this book. It's really great. And so I read it and I was like, or listened to it. And I'm like, man, this was just hit me right in the face. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to go back and listen to it again because there's a lot of things I missed. When I was doing research on this podcast, I'm like, man, that's such a great point. I got to figure that out and how to make sure that I implement that in my business. Your business is what your business is based on how you think about your business. Your business is exactly what you've wanted it or how you've acted it to be. You might have visioned something different, but you don't behave any differently. And it's not really your fault at some level if you're not reading the right material, but it is your fault 100% because you're not reading and finding the right material. So guys, listen, I want to thank everybody for watching this podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. We want to keep bringing all of these great things to you. We'd love to see as many people as possible come to our channel and find value in some of the information we give. I'll continue to do this, and I may do a second part to this just because I think there was so much great information. I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope everybody has an awesome day.